what would you say if I said that I could bring them back?
I guess I'd say I never thought of that.
Well, alright, hold tight, you might want to stand back because one small John is coming intact.
St. John forward, spitting out some more words, fully intact, jacked, ready to rap and attack. Small John on your lawn, living like a gnome, hit you with my lyrics like a bullet to your dome.
Tonight when he comes up here, he's either gonna kill or he's gonna suck. But there's no in between for Mr. John Forward.
Oh, well, I didn't know any of that.
Well, that's what I've been trying to say the whole time.
Hello, St. John Forward radio listeners. I'm John Forward here, back after a week off. It's been an interesting week here in St. John, New Brunswick. Lots of rain, flooding, and then it all froze twice this week. I had to work from home this past Monday and Friday. Monday was more of a precaution, but Friday, Rosse Avenue was shut down, and that's where my office is, so I couldn't go in if I wanted to. But the most important thing that's been all the rage in the news, the media's been banging on my door and blowing up my inbox because St. John Forward Radio didn't happen last week for the first time since October 2016. That I haven't been in the booth every week, but this is the first time that I haven't had a fresh new episode to drop in my absence. So they ran a rerun last week. I don't even know which one they picked. I just told them to throw something on. I was going to try to make it in, but the university was closed, and I probably could have put something together for the podcast feed on Wednesday, but I decided I might as well take a week off. His absence makes your hearts all grow fonder for the show, and hopefully this week's episode is good enough that it counts as 2 weeks all at once. So over the Christmas break, I was actually thinking about stopping doing the show in general. It was kind of nice to have a free Monday night for a couple of weeks when I had the pre-recorded Christmas specials going. It was nice not to have to edit and upload the podcast on Tuesday and Wednesday morning before going to work, and trying not to be late getting that last little thing in under the wire. But I was planning on focusing on comedy-wise. I was planning on focusing on tightening up my existing material this year. I put in my application for the Fundy Fringe Festival this summer, and my plan was I was going to spend most of the year just working on stuff I already have, put that hour together, and haven't really had many new ideas lately anyway. And I was kind of wondering with the radio show, is all of my creative energy being tapped out writing these 10-minute monologues that everybody skips through for the show every week? And I thought maybe, well, whatever's going on with me that week is being put into this. But I've at least got that stuff written down, and I've got a chunk of stuff written about what was going on with me for the past 100 and something weeks. So I don't write these like a comedy bit. You'll notice that you're not laughing right now, but there's probably moments. So I think in 100 and something weeks, I can probably scrape together 10 minutes of accidental laughs. So I could just go through that if I need to pull any new material. But anyway, that's just to keep myself busy. It's not the focus. So I want to work on that Fringe Festival show. The one I did 2 years ago, Honey Garlic, was a good title. I don't know what to call this one. Honey Garlic worked because that's part of a bit that I knew that I was gonna close with, and it kind of tied the whole thing together. But this one, I'm attempting to do more of a straight comedy show instead of more of a one-man show, which I understand even when I'm doing regular comedy, that line's a little blurred. But I don't have as clear of an overall theme this time. Last one, I could just kind of pull all my kind of autobiographical childhood trauma material into it, and it all fit together. This one, not really sure. It's just going to be a scattering of stuff that I think is good. Don't know what the through line is yet, and probably won't know until I decide on the set list for it, but I put my submission in, and I called it Cigarettes and Doritos, which is a line from a bit that'll probably be in it, but who knows, that might get cut. But it's another food-related title, which isn't intentional. But I'm also probably gonna have a chunk of material in there about when I was a teacher, and I thought maybe I should play up that angle, because teachers are egomaniacs, and it might get them out to some shows if they want to hear people talk about them. So that might be something good to put on a poster. I could call it Mr. Forward, and have my Rossay High School yearbook picture of 2006 of me doing a physics problem on the chalkboard, maybe. But that's going to only be like 10 or 15 minutes of the hour, though, so I don't know. That's false advertising. Do I care once they're already in the seats? I don't know. And I'm not going to say nice things about the teachers, so that might just piss everybody off. Who knows? But either way, I assume they'll let me change the name at some point, as long as I decide before stuff starts getting printed out. Been working on that teacher stuff this weekend, which wasn't a part of the first draft of the hour that I did at Callahan's a couple of months ago, but I'm happy with how it's going. It still needs some work, but I've been doing that this weekend at Chuckles, and last couple of shows I did, including a No Jokes Barred show that was on this past weekend on the 16th at Taco Pica, which was a good show. I've been a part of a couple of shows at Taco Pica in the past, and this is the first one I put on, and it went well. Everybody had good sets and packed house and good audience. A big chunk of the audience was there to see Dylan Parker, a Ottawa comic that was passing through, and he's from here, so he had a lot of family out. But it's good for me. I've had a couple of mediocre shows before that, so it was a good win. I didn't do great in Bathurst last month, and I headlined Uptown Comedy Deluxe a couple of weeks ago and ate it a bit. But I did well hosting at Taco Pica. Started with the teacher stuff, that went over well. Added a couple of new tags to it. After the intermission, I did a new bit that I'd been working on about last time I bought some weed from my dealer, and that's one I've been working on for a couple of months now, and I was having a hard time writing it, and it wasn't helping with my confidence in that I have no ideas anymore. I just kind of wrote it down, didn't know if it was going to be funny or not. It was just, this is a thing that happened. Requires a bit more acting on my part, I guess. I go back and forth between my own voice and the dealer character, and I knew there was at least a kernel of a good idea in it, but I wasn't really sure how to structure it. It doesn't have a strong ending, and the voice that I'm doing for the dealer needs some work. It needs some more practice with that, so I'm not just going back and forth with my regular voice and just yelling into a microphone. That could use a little more nuance, but anyway, I'm going to keep working on that. I don't expect that that'll be ready to go. It doesn't need to be part of the hour this summer. That'll take a while before I'm comfortable with it, but so anyway, this show is I'm recording on a Saturday. Had a good first night at Chuckles last night. It's been since last January since I've done the full weekend at Chuckles, so it's good to be back for the technically the 3-year anniversary that they're not talking about for some reason. But it was a good first night, opening for Sean Lacomber, and we're in the middle of an icepocalypse here in town, so that might be part of the reason the room was about half full, and they could be a little stingy last night, but I think I did well regardless, and got some kind words from some other people. But tonight's the big one. It's sold out, and I'm looking forward to that. When there's a full room at Chuckles, it's always a great show, and we had a great show with a half a room, so this one's going to be even better. the Reverend Brian Giles is also on the show, and it's always good to see him. And I'm joined in the studio by my guest who is hosting the Chuckles shows this weekend, Scott Belford. How are you doing?
Hey, buddy.
So
I like that you started this all off with a long list of excuses as to why last show didn't happen. It's good.
Well, the people need to know.
They gotta know.
They're tuning in like, where the hell was John Forward last week? I was sitting in front of the radio at 9 p.m. on Monday night, which I don't know how many people listen to it live. I think most of it's the podcast version.
I like that you started it, though, with, just so you do know, this is the first time I've missed it since 2016, so I'm deserving of 1 week off, right?
Well, I've got to hold myself accountable for that, so...
I guess if no one else is, you better, right?
Well, the fans, they tune in. They're like, he better tell me what happened next week within the first minute, or I'm tuning out. All right, well, let's take a musical break, and then we'll be back to talk some more with Scott. And I should have had this queued up instead of having to fuss with it right now. But I'm gonna play some Red Fang on St. John Forward Radio, and then we'll be back.
We take the long road.
And we're back on St. John Forward Radio. That wasn't a very elegant fade out. I apologize again to the listeners. They've got lots of demands of me. I have to explain every mistake. It's just so they know why. It's not my fault.
They expect your fading ability to be better than that after doing this since 2016.
It's true. Well, I also had a show here.
But you're rusty, not being in last week.
Yeah. I also had a show here from like 2001 to 2011, so I really should know better. So, Scott Belford, how are you doing?
Been good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I moved to the East Coast in the summer, so like I'm 6 months in and finally starting to get the hang of it, I think.
So you're originally from Alberta. Where were you living before you were in Toronto?
And then Toronto for the last 5 years, yeah.
So why Halifax?
I wanted out of Toronto. I didn't want to go back west. I'm not a fan of Vancouver, and Halifax seemed like the other option, I guess. And I've toured out here quite a bit too, so I do really enjoy the Maritimes. In fact, New Brunswick, PEI, Nova Scotia, it's all beautiful. And it's being a guy who tours on the road so much, it's nice to be in an area where everything is drivable in about 4 to 5 hours, at the longest. Whereas when you're set up shop out west in Edmonton or something like that, your road gigs can sometimes wind up, if you're playing Manitoba or something, it's a 12-hour drive and then try doing a show after that, right? So
yeah. How come you wanted to get out of Toronto? Just expensive?
In all honesty, I love Toronto, but expensive was one of it. I found that after 5 years in the scene, I'd really got all that I could out of Toronto. Like I do better in a smaller scene anyways. Like I don't know, I'm old and not great at going out and partying with everyone anymore, and that's kind of what you got to do to be in the group consistently, Yeah,
well, Halifax definitely bigger than what we have here. They've got like multiple shows.
Oh yeah, that's another thing,
week.
Right? Is Halifax does have a show once a week,
but
it's not once a day.
Yeah, it's not as like in Toronto though, where you've got multiple shows going every day, so you don't miss being able to bounce around and do like multiple open mics on the same night. Or does that just get exhausting?
That doing 2 or 3 shows a night is beyond me. Not that it wouldn't help me, but I'm kind of at a point where I'm doing 30 to 60 minutes every Friday, Saturday, and so I don't grind on the open mics like I used to. And I'm in a relationship too of like 7 years, and there's give and take if you want to live your real life and be a comic. So
well, even in New Brunswick, I'd probably get on like once a week.
Yeah.
At the most, and even then sometimes like, this show every 2 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it.
I kind of try and do 2 mics a week and then plus whatever pro shows I'm doing on the weekend.
Yeah. So, a couple of our comics from St. John moved out to Toronto about right after you got here. Little Matty Keenan and Sam Laidman. Yeah, Sam has quit.
He's back.
He came back for about a month, and then he moved back out to Calgary because he's got some family there that he can stay with.
Well, Calgary's a good scene. He'll like it there.
Yeah, but I'm just I always wonder like you said, you're doing longer sets every weekend anyway, so I guess the value of being like the 30th person on an open mic doing 5 minutes to know people probably doesn't really.
It is true, and Toronto is a grind to kind of get to the point. Like you almost have to prove yourself for a year to get on the better open mics, even like where there's crowds and stuff. So that is frustrating. But one thing that I think Toronto has over any other scene in the country is just killer comics, and so many of them. And so you're really pushed because you watch everyone else develop these 7-minute sets, which is something that like coming from Edmonton, my background was really accumulating time, right? Because the talent pool is smaller there, and so if you're funny, you're going to get a lot of work if you've got a good 20 minutes, if you've got a good 30 minutes. Where the focus in Toronto, a lot of the people who move there are more fame orientated, and it's really about getting on television and stuff like that.
Late night set.
Exactly, and they are, man. It's really impressive. Even the shittiest open micers have a solid 7, ask them to do 10 and you're like, whew, that fell off quick. But like, everyone's kind of working on their 7, their 5 or whatever. So it is a market where you can become very good over that time, because that is a focus there is those short, sharp sets.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that kind of that formula kind of changes the whole trajectory of somebody. Like I don't know what I'd be doing if I started out with something like that, because I was kind of the opposite, where I was doing music open mics because there wasn't anything going on, and I'd just go up and ramble for 20 minutes and see what happens. So like even once I started doing when I found out about the Wilsers room up in Fredericton, I had to like trim it down to 10 minutes to get into that spot. And like I've said before, I've got stuff that when I was doing it at the music open mics was probably like 15 or 20 minutes, and now that same bit is like 5, and I don't even remember what was cut from it. Probably nothing good.
That's the thing, right? Is that in a smaller scene, it is easier to not trim the fat, especially if you're in the top 50%. Like if you're just funnier, even if you are long-winded, there's no real urgency to, like, if you're on a show with a bunch of killers and you're like, everyone's super tight set, it's noticeable, right? When you're up there and you're like, well, I really could have trimmed the fat on that, like as you see everyone else getting more laughs per minute. Not that that's what comedy is all about, but it kind of is too.
It's hard to cut some stuff. Even the set that I did last night at Chuckles, I had to trim out like a couple of minutes just to stick to my 10.
It's new jokes too, I find. Everyone, when you're developing new material, you got to go up there and do it and figure out what the fat is, because it's not like we're comics. Of course, everything we put on paper you think is funny. Why would you put it on paper if you don't, right?
Yeah.
But then you do it in front of people and you're like, oh, not everything I think of is hilarious.
Well, and when I'm telling stories especially, I get bogged down to, well, this is what happened. I need to state all of the facts, whether they're funny or not. It's important.
Truth! I'm a truth teller.
Yeah, no, there wasn't 3 people in that conversation. There was 3 people, not like, but now you're like, well, how about I make it 2 minutes shorter and just say that that's all one person.
Get to the punchline,
Yeah, that's still something I struggle with, but yeah, when I have to.
You're not alone though. Every comic struggles with that.
Yeah, but I think I'm the only one around here that's like, all right, you got 10 minutes at Chuckles. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to fit my one joke into those 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with being a storyteller, right? Is like you're a guy who, you're telling chunks, and it is harder. Like that's the one thing one-liner guys, they excel so. Yeah, because
they excel in places. Just how many you can get through in X number of minutes,
and they excel in places like Toronto where it is shorter sets, and so you can get in there and. Here's a joke, rather than be like, so me and a group of friends of mine were.
And I've experimented with that. I've gone through like longer sets and just I think Matt Keenan and Dan McCarthy. I don't know if you've ever met Dan.
I don't know if I've met Dan.
They had like a one-liner off. At an open mic show at McGill's once, and I was just doing a set, and I decided I'm going to try to tell actual jokes, and I went through just all of my material and just picked out all of like the individual 2 or 3 line things that kind of stand alone, and it was an interesting experiment. I don't I can do it, but I don't like it as much. I guess it doesn't. I don't know. I like to ramble a bit and paint a picture.
Quick question here, just because I'm not plugged in, but I was seeing stuff about it on Facebook. When you guys were performing in the parking lot, what was that about?
Well, you did the show,
No Jokes Bar,
at the R Bar. I think when was that? Was that?
That would have been October, I think.
That might have been the last show.
That was a fun show too. Yeah. When I heard that they canceled it, I was like, "What the hell? That's weird."
Yeah.
It was
well,
bad.
We had it has been dropping off steadily over the years, and I just got a phone call one day, and they just said it's a packed house until 8 o'clock, and then karaoke ends and the comedy people start coming in, and I play my annoying music to scare off the regulars,
Right.
and then there's a dozen people there for the comedy show, and then it's packed again after 11 for karaoke. So they
And
just
they're
decided,
just like, we want that money that you're losing us.
yeah, yeah. And went for the first. I was there for 4.5 years, and like
Wow,
leading
that's
up
a long time.
Yeah, and it was we had some good times and bad times. I think it really started to drop off when Yuk Yuks opened. I'm not sure if that's why, but that's kind of how it played out. And I was
Right.
kind of hoping that it would pick back up again after Yuk Yuks closed, but didn't have the chance to see
Right.
why. But and all through, I made it as a pretty regular thing to kind of antagonize the regulars and make sure, like, if you're going to be here, shut the hell up.
Yeah.
And we're putting on a show, and just not being very nice to them and scaring them off. And you can get away with that when you're bringing in more people, but
Right.
when the regulars are complaining about the comedy show and there isn't enough of a comedy audience to make up for it,
Yeah. I get it.
it's
yeah,
so
it's tough to blame the venue even.
yeah, I was
when you look at it and you're like, yeah, they are losing money on this. Dang.
and I'm not happy about it. I'm disappointed, but I'm not really upset with
Yeah.
the owner. Like, they kept us there for a long
4.5
time,
years,
and
that's more than most
They put
mics.
up with us for a long time. So we've I just decided, as kind of I don't know, just a fun thing was. I guess, I don't know. I was thinking, somebody jokingly said you should do one in the parking lot out there, and I was like, you know what? I kind of like that idea, and just decided to put it on. It was the parking lot, not like directly outside their back door, but it's all connected. It was in the same parking lot, and I just thought it would be a fun thing to kind of play up, like, oh, poor us, we got kicked out of our venue, so now we have to do a show outside.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Did you have a few audience members show up even or no?
It was mostly just the local comics,
Yeah,
and there
of
was
course.
a couple other people, but we had fun doing it,
Yeah.
and I even
Did
even
the
if
R-Bar
it-
even get a little bit of a kick out of it or no?
I have no idea.
You're like, I don't.
I haven't
know,
spoken to
or
anybody
care.
in there.
Yeah.
No, I've not been back in the R bar since the falling out.
Which is really the biggest shame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know where
They
I'm
miss
gonna
you,
do
I'm sure.
karaoke anymore. But yeah, it was kind of a fun thing. I usually I opened up the shows with a terrible karaoke song where I shoehorn No Jokes Barred into the lyrics somehow. And,
Nice.
But you know, we've been bouncing around venues. We did one in the parking lot, and then we did one at another bar that's in that parking lot that nobody knows where it is because you can only get to it from the parking lot.
Okay.
And then I was at Taco Pica.
Did you still start it off with a karaoke song?
No. Didn't have the setup for that. But we did have an amp and a microphone and a light, so that was pretty impressive for an outdoor show.
Yeah.
It was in November.
So it was
but-
cold.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't as cold as it had been for the couple of weeks leading up to that, but. So yeah, we're bouncing around. Had one at Taco Pica, like a Guatemalan Mexican
How was that?
restaurant. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And packed house. But
Oh, great.
and right after the show, he was like, "When's the next one?" And even with the foundations that we did, that was kind of a smaller audience. I'm kind of resisting the urge to just, okay, this is where it's going to be. I want to kind of play the field a bit and
Yeah.
see what's going on.
Right.
I've got one in a different place next month. It's going to be at McGill's, by the way. And you know, I haven't decided if, like, common sense would say, if you want to build an audience, you got to pick a place so people know where to go. But I'm also thinking, like, if we rotate around, it's kind of fresh every time, and the audience might not drop off as much over time if it's kind of a brand new thing each
Yeah.
time. Even if we rotate through like three different
venues
places.
every. You run this monthly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that one that runs monthly, which is more of an open mic, and then I've got one that's more of a showcase show that I do at O'Leary's. That's been going for 2 years.
Nice.
That one has.
And that one does well.
It had not been. I actually, before the R Bar thing ended, I was more worried about the O'Leary's thing being canceled
Right.
because we've had very slim audiences. That one, the bar charges a $7 cover to get in, so there's that extra step. I'm not sure if that's what it was.
Right.
And they pushed our start time back to 10 from 9 because they had live music going on in the room right outside the thing, and it would have been too loud to have both at the same time, which I wasn't thrilled about, but it has helped. Like there's just more people at the bar at 10 o'clock than at 9, so there's more people kind of sticking their head in.
Yeah.
And when the music's done downstairs, I usually hop on stage and announce that the show's going on, so that brings a few people up.
Yeah.
So the last few shows with the later start time have been the best attended we've had. Not necessarily the best audience, but the room's full. So
Perfect.
I think the bar's happy, but like I said, I ate it the last time. I was doing my headline, the teacher stuff that I did at Chuckles that saved the end of the set, but for the first half of my half hour, I was just eating it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one's more of a room that I wanted to have it more of a showcase, and instead of like I have 2 or 3 people doing 15-minute sets and then a half-hour headline just to give people a chance to stretch.
Community boy.
You can put whatever slant on it you like, but if you want to say your name and that you're listening to 107.3 local FM.
Community boy.
How have you found, like, the scene here is obviously growing like it is in every city across the country, it feels like right now.
Yeah.
Comedy scenes are popping up. You're like the veteran here kind of thing. Like, have you noticed like a bunch of new comics coming up? Like, is that...
Yeah, it's dropped off the last little bit, but when I started, there wasn't any. Like, Shane's been putting on shows since 2009.
Oh, I remember the first time we met. What was it, like 6 years ago in Fredericton at that Troy Haynes show or whatever, and like it was you and like 3 other comics,
Mark and Arif, and that was
about it. Yeah.
But yeah,
in all of New Brunswick, pretty much. Like,
yeah. Well, Welser's Room had been going for a while. That's a once a month open mic show. That's kind of where that was the first time I got to do a comedy show for people that came on purpose, which was nice. But yeah, it has built up quite a bit, and just having a place to do it, like, because doing it at a music open mic is a bit of a slog. And it's not a very inviting place for a new person to try it out.
There's still music open mics in Edmonton that say comics not welcome, and that was partly to do with me.
Here, I haven't been doing them, but some Godso and some other people did
some of the
the one at there's a Wednesday night open mic at O'Leary's where I do my comedy show, and that open mic's kind of an institution, has been running for a long time, and they were very happy to have them. Like, it's a special treat, which is better than, like, I did one and I talked for 20 minutes and then I was holding a guitar pretending like I was going to play a song, and I don't know how to play. I just strum it every now and then, and I talked for 20 minutes and some guy was like, "You're not even going to play a song?" And I'm like, no. But so yeah, just inserting yourself in is rough.
See, this is the thing with music open mics. 1 or 2 comics, very friendly. You start showing up with 5, 7, 10 comics and they're like, "No, get out."
But it goes better when, like, the main one that I did was like a Tuesday night one where nobody was really paying attention to the music. It was just the only place that had anybody at it, and it was background, so nobody was paying attention anyway. The O'Leary's one is more of a show that people go and watch the bands, and it goes a lot better when the host is like, "We've got a special treat for you," and kind of sets it up, instead of here's John Forward.
Yeah,
he's gonna talk into a microphone for a while. But yeah, it has picked up. There was a bit of new people doing it at, like, the Yuk Yuks when Amateur Night started there. I always found it weird that there's a lot of people that did the Yuk Yuks Amateur Night that have never approached me or had any idea. I don't know if they don't know about the No Jokes Bar show.
For sure they don't.
They were afraid of going to the R Bar, which At this point, I'm not sure the drop-off of the audience may have been because of the venue, and
Right.
it's funny for us to have to deal with some drunk, insane person, but it's kind of exhausting for an audience that just wants to watch the show.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So because
Because I've always been fascinated by the New Brunswick scene. Like, I really like that it's, like, between Fredericton, Moncton, and St. John, like, there's comics in all of them, and everyone travels to do the shows and get mic time, and, like...
it's gotten more insular lately. There's a lot of the new people in Fredericton. There's a lot of, like, young university kids that never leave Fredericton.
Right.
And
As the scenes grow and the need to travel
Yeah.
is less...
Yeah, and in Moncton with Hell's Basement,
Yeah.
there's people that are on those lineups that I have no idea who they are. So
Yeah.
I assume that they're local Moncton people. And
I've been impressed with Moncton.
Yeah.
Like, they've gone from no scene and zero comics, pretty much, to, like,
there's
a pretty
few,
decent little
like,
scene.
The Midlife Crisis.
Yeah,
guys
of course, the
have been
Midlife
there
Crisis
forever,
boys have
and-
been there forever,
and,
yeah.
Martin, Eric, the
Yeah.
French guys, they've been
Yeah,
going.
they've been there forever.
But there's been a lot of people that have been taking those Nikki Payne classes. I think that that do mostly Hell's Basement.
Yeah.
And I don't
That's the
really
thing,
know
right?
any of those people. And I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just assume that these are just kind of moms that are going out and checking it off on the bucket list, and they're not wanting to, like, go on a road trip and
Yeah.
pursue, like, their comedy career. It's
Yeah.
just a fun thing that they do, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, for sure. It is cool, though, to watch, because this is something that's kind of happening in Canada that hasn't ever happened before, which is cities of 50 to 100,000 independent comedy clubs are popping up. Like, there's a new one in Medicine Hat, Alberta. A new one in Lethbridge just popped up. You know, we've got
Yeah.
Thunder Bay and...
Well, and Hell's Basement has been great. I
Hell's
had
Basement
any
in
other
Moncton is
show that
awesome.
I've done in Moncton before that has been dreadful. Like, Shane used to do before Chuckles, he used to do, like, a Thursday in Fredericton and Friday in St. John and then Saturday in Moncton at the
Mm-hmm.
press club or something. And every time I did one of those press club shows, it was just dreadful.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's got a pretty good audience going at Hell's Basement.
Yeah, he does.
They've been
Great venue, small, so, like, it
Yeah.
feels packed, even if there's only 30, 40 people there. You know, you can
and
only
and
fit
it's a
60.
high
like-
quality of people that are there, and they're
Yeah.
good laughers. And
Yeah.
it hasn't really been any annoying, like, chatting or anything.
No.
People are very respectful of the show and
Yeah.
on board with it, which is
100% agree, man. 100%. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a break. And do you want to tell us about your song that you've selected for this evening?
Oh, they're just a bluegrass band. I'm such a classic rock nut growing up and stuff that, like, I really had to branch out musically. And yeah, I really like the Steel Drivers. It's actually, like, Chris Stapleton, who's, like, a big deal in country music now,
I've
but he
heard
kind of
that.
started with them back in, like, 2008 or whatever. So that's what this is.
All right. Well, let's hear some Steel Drivers with the Price on St. John Forward Radio.
Cold on lonesome, dead
Oh, I'm nailing this fade out. I got it right this time.
Nice.
That's right. No,
That's
no
that's
abrupt
really
fade.
showing off your 14 years of experience.
That's right. So we're here with Scott Belford in the pre-record booth. You'd touched on how this new thing of independent comedy clubs cropping up across the country. We've got one coming next month, Cricket's Comedy Club.
Right, and they've got one in Thunder Bay too.
Yeah, have you been to the one in Thunder Bay?
I have.
much?
Good little club.
Yeah.
I think the more independent clubs, the better for Canadian comedy. The more work, the better. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it coming back. I'm not sure how it's gonna go because the Yuk Yuks thing didn't work out. But
yeah,
since Steve, who ran Yuk Yuks, is going to be involved with this new one, I'm still not entirely sure if that was the plan all along or if this is a new development. So, but yeah, I don't know if I know Yuk Yuks would charge like a franchise fee, which would cut into the profitability, and you kind of get head office is telling you who to book, and that for better or worse.
Yeah.
So like you've got a bit more freedom with an independent club.
I feel like there's a shift going on right now too, and we were talking about this a little bit during the song, but comedy has, as you skew younger, as the crowds, as the baby boomers are dying off or not going to as many shows, and millennials are becoming more of the audience. Yuk Yuks almost has like a weird your dad's comedy club feel to it, like I think it's kind of pigeonholed in a certain, or viewed in a certain way.
Yeah,
and
well,
I think
the name itself is cheesy.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, I work Yuk Yuks. Like, I have nothing bad to say about it. Well, I mean, I do, but we don't need to get into
Not
that now, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I've spent.
They pay like crap. That's really the only problem with Yuk Yuks, is they pay like crap and then they don't let you work anywhere else.
Yeah, well, and I know how kind of vindictive they were towards Shane even before they opened a club here.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd try to book their people, and they would do everything they could to
crush the little guy.
Crush that. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen with Crickets. I can't imagine that they're thrilled that.
I heard they're trying to
built,
stop it, but
yeah.
I don't think they have a leg to stand on. I don't think that they are going to spend a bunch of money to fight it either.
Yeah, but any of people that are kind of under their boot are not going to be allowed to do that club.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah. So that's.
But they don't have anything out here. That's the thing, right? It's after that Halifax club, they don't even have one-nighters.
Yeah.
So you can play that Halifax club. I mean, if you live in Halifax, I mean, I play it probably like once a month or once every couple months as an opener, because I'll just fill any weekend in my schedule that I don't have filled with good paying work. I'll take a look at it and then I'll send them an email, be like, hey, I'm available these dates. If you can work me, that's great.
Yeah.
But after that, I mean, if you're trying to be a professional comic, so if you're looking to just make a living at it, Yuk Yuks is almost at a point where it's not sustainable for you as a comedian to pursue that route.
Are you signed with Yuk Yuks?
I am not signed with Yuk Yuks, no.
So they can't really tell you you're not allowed to do.
No, they can't
whatever.
tell me not to do anything.
But I'm
they'll
thinking
work me like I close the one-nighters and do their clubs and stuff like that. But
yeah, but for anybody that is signed with them, even if there isn't a Yuk Yuks in New Brunswick, I can see them saying like, no, you're not allowed to do that shit.
100%, not that club, anyways. It's like the Laugh Shop stuff out west when Yuk Yuks got flipped. Like this is comedy politics from 10 years ago, but there was a new chain Laugh Shop that popped up and kind of took over their clubs that previously were Yuk Yuks, and there was a big lawsuit, and there was all sorts of crazy stuff went down. But
yeah, well,
they are very firm. You do not play the Laugh Shop.
Yeah, because like I know even like the thing with Shane, like he burned some bridges like a decade ago, and they're still pissed off about it.
Yeah,
and so this guy opens up a club and makes a name for himself and builds up a following for a year and a half, and then shuts it down and reopens it with a different name. They can't be thrilled about that.
No.
But it's
But he's not the owner. It's gonna be I don't know exactly how the laws work, so
yeah.
I know they're gonna try and do their best to scare him. But
Yeah, it's probably not a legal thing, but it's going to be just kind of behind the scenes. They're going to do whatever they can to mess with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
whatever power they have to flex.
The amount of independent comics that are out there now, it's substantial. It's not like it used to be where it was either yucks or nothing. There's two strong streams of both sides.
Like what percentage of like the touring headliners in this country would you say are kind of under the Yuk Yuks umbrella compared to the independent ones?
Probably 50 to 60%.
Okay.
I'd say it's pretty close to half.
Okay. That's not too bad. As I have no idea. I don't get too far out of the Maritimes usually, so I don't really know what's going on in the country as a whole. I just assumed that most of the comics are with Yuk Yuks because it's kind of a monopoly, and at least for a long time it was either them or
they
nothing.
don't have the power they used to because they don't have the clubs they used to. There's still a force to be reckoned with in the GTA, so the Greater Toronto area. There's 8 clubs, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
And they won't work me there, right? They won't work independent comics in their hub,
right.
But they need comics out west and out east here that are proficient and strong comics. And so if you're a funny person and you're living in these areas that aren't considered their stronghold, they'll work you, but they just...
Yeah, and my disappointing, like I bombed the one show out of 3 in Halifax, and that haunted me for like 2 years.
Right.
And so I'm looking forward to kind of a fresh start.
Yeah.
There is still the baggage that, like, I think towards the end of the Yuk Yuks thing, I think I was on good terms with Steve, but there was a while where he was mad at me because I handed out flyers outside Yuk Yuks for my own show, and I think that everything...
Which you can almost understand,
Yeah, well, that was, I played it up like, well, this happens everywhere. What's the big deal? But I was kind of being I was rightfully upset because he chose not to tell me that Yuk Yuks told him that I'm not allowed to even do a guest spot. And
wow.
And he let me brown nose for an entire year until another comic invited me out to the show and tried to get me a spot, and then that guy had to tell me the bad news. So
wow.
I was not happy that, like, I wouldn't be happy about the situation anyway, but be straight with me and don't let me grovel and have to show up and embarrass myself.
Yeah.
But I'm over. Well, not entirely, but I'm willing to look past it. I don't like to. I have held grudges in the past, and it's never been a good thing. So I try to.
Yeah, grudges aren't good.
As long as the other person wants to move on, I'm willing to move along with them. So I think I was getting along. The last time I did a show I did a guest spot at Yuks. I did pretty well, and Steve. Shook my hand, said good job, and he wanted me to come back on like a Thursday when he wasn't as busy so that he could pay more attention to my set. So
nice.
I think I was on the way back into the good graces, but then they shut down. I was supposed to do a guest spot on the last weekend. It was on the Thursday show that got canceled.
Yeah.
And then that was it. But it's a fresh start, and it's just more stage time for everybody.
Yeah, it's good news.
And I'm looking forward to poaching their people that they're bringing in for my shows. like when you were in town.
Like when I ran right over.
No Jokes Barred. You came over, and like my O'Leary's show on a Friday night. Like that doesn't start till 10. So
perfect.
It's like 3 blocks away.
That's awesome.
So yeah, anybody that's in for the weekend, and that makes the rest of us have to work harder. If we're doing it's one thing to kill when we're like the best of the small pond that we're in, but we have to work that much harder the more shows that we do with professional comics that are so it's easy to get an ego when you're a big fish in a small pond, but I like having you and whoever else that wants to come through to come on, and it's also good for the audience. It makes a better show for everybody watching it, and they might come back.
I always enjoy it. Like the show we did was great. It was fun.
Yeah, and for a while, I don't know why it took me so long to to kind of even ask anybody. I just assumed that it was going to be a problem that either Yuk Yuks would get mad at them for, but my Small Beans shows, they don't care if you're going to do a second show on the same
I
night.
don't think Steve was thrilled that I did it, but I mean, I'm not signed.
Yeah.
It's tough for them to tell the independent comics don't do it.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure, like, this big shot coming through, why would they want to do my little rinky-dink show? But comics like stage time in front of different audiences.
Especially, especially if you're going to throw them a couple bucks. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I don't know. I'm holding, and I think when Yuk Yuks came around last time, everybody was kind of on the defense, like, the big bad corporations coming into town to capitalize on the scene that we built. Now it's kind of a different thing, and everybody wants to be on board with it.
Yeah.
Until we have a reason not to be, but hopefully that never happens. But I think everybody's starting out with.
With hope
there's some
for this new club.
There's some behind the scenes conversations going on, but whatever. I'm going to have an open mind until something bad happens.
100%. Well, it's really cool to watch that a city like St. John of, what is it, around 100,000 people here?
I don't know.
Yeah,
something like that.
It doesn't matter, but there's Chuckles, which is a great independent club that runs monthly and with a few extra shows in between, and to have another club come in and for weekly is fantastic. I think that's can only be good for the scene, for comics anyways.
Yeah, and I wish there was more overlap in the audience, but because even like one row of the Yuk Yuks would make a real banger of a show in my small rooms. But I don't know, and also like I don't expect necessarily somebody that's going out to see a $20 show at Yuk Yuks to want to go down to the dingy karaoke bar to see an open mic. But I'm surprised there isn't more overlap where there's people that are comedy fans that like, oh, that's great. Like, because even if I wasn't a comic, I would still like going to see the open mics just because it's a different energy to see something that's not quite finished and it's not quite as prepared and. It's a different vibe to see somebody trying something than like a super polished set.
It's like seeing the cake be made kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe that's something that that non-comics are not interested in. I don't know.
Maybe audience members just want the cake already made. You know.
How are the audiences for like the smaller shows in Halifax? I've gone down and it's been kind of hit or miss.
They're good. I mean, most of the mics fluctuate between 10 to 20 audience members, but there's actual audiences. There is a big enough a big enough group of people coming out that you can get a legit feel on how jokes are going to go. It gives you a chance to run new stuff, and it's good.
It's good.
I really like the Halifax scene.
Even like 5 good audience members is solid, but I don't know. I find like I've gone into some bigger cities, just been in town and done some open mics, and it's only been the comics that are on the show, and they're not even paying attention. And even if they're
just waiting for their turn to play on the mic. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's a lot of Toronto shows actually.
Yeah, and I don't feel like I'm getting any real experience out of doing something like that any more than just getting practice saying the words.
Yeah,
I could do
for
that
sure.
at home.
Those mics are good for the people who are brand new. Yeah. So like, because let's face it, I believe anyways, your first 100 sets almost don't matter. Like you're pretty much just. You're probably not going to use any of those jokes in the long term, and you're just getting used to being in front of people, because I know for me anyways, I don't get nervous anymore, but my first 2 sets, I like puked before I went up, like full on throwing up, right? Like it can be a pretty nerve-wracking thing. Like I remember I was nervous for weeks before my first show, like and now, my God, like
I never really had that. I usually don't get nervous ahead of time. If I have a bad set, then afterwards I'm just like in a black hole.
Oh, of course, yeah, me too.
But the lead up to it, not so much. Only for some reason, if I'm doing a contest or something, like I did the hubcap the last few years, and every time I tell myself this doesn't matter. It's just a show. Go and have fun. But then like 30 minutes before, I'm like shaking and
I think that's natural. Every comic gets on bigger showcase type scenarios, get a little nervous, but and I was telling you, very nervous to start, but like now I mean, I've done
But
thousands of shows, right?
Yeah.
So now
I find I'm almost more at ease when the bigger the audience is, just because there's more people that can laugh.
Yeah.
I guess because there's still, like, even if you're doing a show for like 1,000 people, even if 10% of the people think that you're funny, that's still 100 people laughing. So. But yeah, like James Mullinger put on a show at St. John High School a few years ago with like it was called Every Comedian in New Brunswick, and it had most of them. We all did 3-minute sets, and there was like 900 people in the audience, and I felt very comfortable with it. But
that's cool.
For some reason, doing a show for like 5 is more nerve-wracking than 500.
Honestly, I say this all the time. I'm way more nervous to interact after the show with other comics that I don't know than I am to do the show.
Yeah, and that's why I like doing shows at Chuckles, so I can like meet up with guys like you and Sean and get a kind of a better idea of what's going on everywhere else.
Yeah.
And I did a show with K-Trev last year, and like hearing him laugh in the little comedy closet at Chuckles makes you feel good.
Definitely.
Like, okay, I'm doing something right.
Yeah, definitely.
And but I always find when I hang out after Chuckles, when I'm not on the show, I always feel like super self-conscious. Like I don't really chat up the headliner if I'm not on the show, because like some local comedian, like without them seeing if I'm any good or not, I just feel like a loser.
Comedians are so funny that way, eh? Yeah. You'll like meet them and they're cold at first, and then they'll see your set. And you do a good job, and they're like, now you're just one of the boys or one of the gang, you know?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I'm reluctant to talk to anybody just because I feel like I don't want to be like a fanboy and be like, I'm a comedian too. All right, well, that's the end of the show.
Thanks, buddy. This was fun. We got a sold-out show to go do now.
That's the show. Good night.